Welcome, seekers and visionaries, to Oracle Mountain Chats. Here on this sacred virtual peak, we gather a space for oracles to share their wisdom, their visions, and their craft. It all began with a calling I could not ignore. One day, within a vision, I held this conch shell in my hands, and as I blew its resonant note into the world, I felt its vibration ripple across unseen realms. It was a summons, a signal to fellow oracles scattered near and far. I saw that we were on a mountain, vast and towering, reaching into the heavens. At its base, the world buzzed with life, people moving, creating, searching. Yet at the summit, there was stillness, clarity, and a circle of light. There, oracles stood, their gaze focused both outward and inward. They spoke of the energies they felt, the shifts they saw, and the whispers of the unseen. They weren't above the world, they were its witnesses and its guides. From this vision, OracleFest was born, a celebration of connection, insight, and the timeless wisdom that flows through us all. The message was clear. It is time. Time to meet upon this sacred mountain, to share what we hear, feel, and see. Time to bring the wisdom of the divine to a world that is yearning for its guidance. Through OracleFest, we've created a movement of community, all yearning to empower their own inner oracle. And here in Oracle Mountain Chats, we bring that spirit into a more intimate space. This is where the oracles gather to reflect, exchange ideas, and to explore what wishes to come through in the moment. This mountain is more than stone and sky. It is a meeting place of the realms, a threshold between seen and unseen, known and unknown. Here we gather as oracles to share the visions Spirit whispers to us, to speak of the energy currents flowing through nature and humanity, and to help guide those who seek answers in a world that often feels lost. So grab a seat, breathe in the mountain air, and join us as we begin today's chat. Whether it's an energy reading, a conversation about our craft, our path, or simply sharing a perspective on the world below, this is where we wait for more oracles to join us on the mountain. What wisdom will the mountain bring us today? Let's find out together. Step into this sacred space where the wisdom of the ages converges with the questions of the present. Hey, welcome to Oracle Mountain, Brandie. And so I'm Kate. The audience is going to know me, probably get sick of me at some point. But I am really, really blessed to have you here on Oracle Mountain for one of these very first Oracle Mountain chats. So this is Brandie Michelle Peters. We met years ago through the Side Chicks, but we have not met in person yet. And I'm so excited for it one day when we finally will cross paths in person. But we met through my joining of your beautiful community, which I have stayed in for maybe 4 years or something. We're on many years now at this point. And so this is the Side Chicks Collective. If anyone is interested, I highly, highly, highly recommend you go join us and join it and join Brandie on her beautiful, beautiful mission of supporting metaphysical practitioners, but also the communities. I really value the idea that actually we do need these oracles and psychics and spiritual folk to be welcome among a larger community. It doesn't work if you just have a whole group of practitioners. You also need people who really respect these practitioners. And I think you've done a brilliant job of curating a space. I have not seen any space like this online. So that's enough about me beefing up the Side Chicks community. I just want to say welcome. You have tons of marketing experience as well. So I'm sure we're going to have some interesting conversations today about spirituality and business and marketing and mission. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the introduction, Kate. And you are an OG at this point. So Sidechicks was founded, the first edition of the collective was founded in 2019, and the community itself was founded in 2019. And we launched the collective when the community had 1,000 members, and we now have 30,000 members. So fast growth over 4 years with consistent and persistent investment in the energy of the community. But it's important to distinguish, just as you were explaining, side chicks, everyone is a side chick who joins our community. There is a free platform. It is a Facebook group right now because that's where we found most effective to get the engagement and interaction. But we are a thriving Facebook group with 30,000 members. And then the Side Chicks Collective is a collective of metaphysical practitioners, whatever that is defined as by them. So we have life coaches, we have psychics, we have tarot card readers, energy workers, people with brick and mortar stores. We have all sorts of different people inside of our collective. The bar of entry is that you want to serve the larger community and you have some form of business in order to monetize your energetic investment in doing so. So they're all business owners and operators in the collective, but the community itself is open to everyone. And we call ourselves a casual metaphysical community. And the word casual is a very intentional component of our name. That is because our mission is to empower self love and self trust through the exploration of the metaphysical. And it is a very self-aware observation that most people who are on a spiritual awakening path to a development path are actually on a personal development journey. We all just want to feel better in ourselves and our existence. And that's often the motivation for a person to go, I call them the curious seekers, to start going down these rabbit holes and exploring things like energy work and psychic connection and channeling and meditation and all of the various kind of like sub topics of the metaphysical. The oftentimes there's a catalyst of awakening takes them down that journey, but really that journey is their personal development journey. And so it really recognizes that, which means we call it casual, meaning there's no like, I call it kind of like elitism or spiritual, the spiritual piss contest that can happen. I am more woke than that. We try to avoid that and we try to make it casual, welcoming, warm for people at all levels. So that's us, and that's really what Side Chicks is. And you've been such a wonderful part of it. You are so well received by our members, and I never had to worry with you about how you were going to show up because really you are on the embodiment of that, and we both have bonded over our understanding of really what this all is, you know?
Absolutely. And, I often say it's like the process of enlightenment is to lighten up, not to take ourselves super seriously. And I think that is such a, I mean, that's the, I'm so conscious and gathered and connected and da 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 da. We're all still human at the end of the day and we all have things going on. And I really love the way that you also practice authenticity in the way you show up. And it allows everyone who's a part of the community to be able to show up themselves as well. And that is why I've stayed and why I love it so much, because I feel welcome there. And isn't that what we actually want? We spiritual folk, we're seeking community. And then so many of these communities are kind of gatekeeping and they keep us from feeling like we're actually just genuinely welcome. And it brings us back to, middle school or whatever, Yeah, there's some sense in
Absolutely.
it.
That is the most common thing people say, when they are trying to dip their toe into something new to them, when they encounter uh, the self-declared ascended, those who, declare themselves to have done the work, somewhere in that work, it seems to be that people forget what it's like to be a beginner and to be a humble beginner. Uh, it is very much, I feel like, a blind spot of the entire, if we want to call it an industry, because it really has become an industry, which means we are participating in the capitalism. We all are participating in that. But what has happened, and I can attest to this as someone, former marketing agency owner working with primarily the helping, healing, and holistic niches. I recently resigned from a marketing director position at an international ceremonial cacao company that I was working at because I observe some of these things. And um, one of the it just drives me is to you said authenticity, and I feel like that's the irony of this whole thing, right? Like once you start making money sharing your modality, sharing your gifts, oftentimes the focus becomes on the monetization of this. It's my passion. I just want to help and heal the world and share this with everybody. I love it so much. And if only people knew about ceremonial cacao or channeling or this special type of meditation or Reiki, like people are very passionate about their modalities. There's no doubt in that. But once you start going down the path of monetization, there is kind of this blurring between mission and purpose and your true, you know, desire to share what is your medicine starts to conflict. And so people start to behave in a way, right, where it is scarcity motivated. These should be the people hyper aware of this, but often that's not the case. It's scarcity motivated, it's comparison, imposter syndrome, all these kind of shadow characteristics. They creep to the surface and they really do corrupt the definition of light working, and they corrupt the motivation of which people are um, showing up to share. And so, what I try to do, and I try to keep the collective, and I must say the collective is the best it's ever been in this, in authenticity and alignment, because we are calling in really good people who understand this part of the whole big picture. Is if you choose the path of being the healers, being the listeners and the helpers, the guides, the mentors, if you choose that path, you may, in a lot of ways, be choosing a path of some nature poverty, especially initially in the building phase. No matter what some marketing coach, business coach tells you. Otherwise, make 10K a month with your, unique signature coaching, whatever. Like this culture of monetizing our gifts and abilities, it's muddied people's minds to recognize that you're choosing the path, often on common, the path of, surrender, to trust that you will be compensated at the level, that you are energetically invested in. And who are you investing in? It is people first. So you can't look at people who need your help and decide, well, because this one has, less room on their credit card than this one, they are less worthy of my time and attention within reason. And there are ways to create boundaries for yourself to protect yourself also from being taken advantage of, because it can swing the other way too.
Yes, it
Because a
can.
lot of us have this empathic desire to serve no matter what. But there's a balance, and I try to lead people as an example of that.
And growth isn't like a problem and profit isn't a problem. But what I notice is that many people, when they're starting out, think, oh, well, this expansion and awakening that I've had means I should be just like this person who does that 5, 10K
Mhm.
month kind of thing. Totally fine. There's lots of people who make that much. But I always wonder, like, what is actually supporting that and how can that last so that this mission continues to help people and help humanity over time, rather than
Mhm.
sometimes what I have seen is people have this quick burnout cycle of racing towards this like profitability as the goal, when you're right, it's actually the healing work is the goal and the service is the goal. And how can we
Mhm.
be doing that in lots of different layers? I know for me, people have always told me to raise my prices, and I find it very challenging because I need to always feel like I have multiple layers of accessibility. It's
Mhm.
important to me as I don't know, it's important to me just to make sure, like you say, actually with OracleFest, the vision for me was that there was a big mountain. And the folks maybe who are hanging out, not even climbing the mountain yet, they're gathering their resources. It's cool for me to be able to go and do something, maybe show you how to put together this cart so that you can make your way up the hill eventually. But I can't do it all the time. There has to be these different levels. But anyway, I don't know where I'm headed with that. I'm just feeling everything.
No. Well, I have so much to share on that because I really believe in alignment and synchronicity.
Yes.
And Alignment is more than just a buzzword. It is, like you said, collecting resources in a sense. But the example would be, right, the individual, say, who just starting out their Reiki business, and they've been told by their certifier or whatever, this is on average where you could start your pricing, but you're going to be responsible for all sorts of things to develop an experience, like how to market yourself, how to maintain, client relationships or repeat customers. You need to have stackable, opportunities, meaning your customers are coming back, and a churn cycle, all of these things. And a lot of people do not have the business acumen. They start out. And I believe in ingrained learning, which means, your first month into business, you're going to learn some things and you go apply that and do better and better. And those businesses do grow. But if you start with the expectation that you're going to be abundantly rewarded as I set up shop, I put up my Facebook page, I invited all my friends, maybe you haven't invested in any form of advertising, but you start trying to play the organic social media game, get your word out there. Those are all good actions to start moving towards what you want. If you're grounded in the reality that that's what you're doing, is one step over the next step with kind of like moving towards some end vision, some end goal. And if that end goal is like in 24 months, I can support myself with my repeat customers, the mindset should be, oh, each of these customers are the path to my success, which means because I'm looking over top of my customers. This is what I see all the time. They look over the customers towards this end vision, this goal. So they give them a mediocre experience. There's no follow up. There's no kind of like, trust building, relationship building, nurture. So that person feels like they're just now a notch on your belt as a client and customer, and they go look for somebody else because they're like, wait, isn't this supposed to be about energy and healing? And I've had this experience where I really felt that I was kind of just, you know, ran over to the next great thing. Each person with care and attention is the pathway to what you want,
Mhm.
but it's getting in alignment to understand that, to understand the impact of your work, because it's not like other businesses where you can just, kind of phone it in. If you're presenting yourself, as I'm going to heal you, I'm going to help you with these services modality. And then the customer gets behind the veil, they've paid you, and now they're having an actual experience with you, and it doesn't match what's been presented for what they're, investing in. That's why these businesses don't grow, and that's why so many of them quit before they gain momentum. And like I said, it's been very muddied when people are promised this is how much profit you can make because they miss the whole point and start aiming for that instead of recognizing like it's all about the way that you kind of take each situation and are present in each situation, in each interaction. And like I said at the beginning, it's the path uncommon. You have to choose to be that type of person. And when people really realize how much self maintenance and generosity of spirit and faith that requires, that should be the kind of the gatekeeper in itself for people to opt out, go do something else with your life. To be honest, like there's a lot of other spaces in this world, in teaching, nursing, elder care, there's animal care, like there's so many other areas a person can be of service and give of themselves, where the bar of who you need to be and how aligned you need to be to the mission exist. But a
Mhm.
lot of people become called to this because they're motivated by things like laptop lifestyle and work from anywhere, financial abundance, that are really not the point. It's just truly not the point.
I love that. And interestingly, that wasn't what drew me. It was one of those things that went, oh, how am I going to do this and also live this way that I was living, which is nomadic? And I'm currently on my laptop in a hotel, but it has taken me so many years to build in a way that I thought, can I actually really trust that this is now able to be my path? Because there's a lot of personal alignment that goes into that. And I never wanted to do readings in a place that wasn't aligned and from like who I was. I didn't want to put out some course that I hadn't really carefully thought about or brought people through a group of, I'm on the seventh round now of empath energetics because I've been really carefully crafting it for years just to finally get to a place where I say, okay, now this is clearly the people have chosen me. and I've chosen to stay on the path.
Mm.
Someone said to me recently, because I don't use the word shaman to describe myself, but someone said recently that there's a this idea that people like your community gives you that title. That almost if we were to be the people walking around in any new community, then people would eventually identify us because of the authentic, heartfelt conversations and ways that we help people from lots of different walks of life. And so there's always got to be, in my mind, these spaces where people are able to run in, have a triage moment, and then leave. And I say, okay, I hope I see them again, but at least I treated that moment with love. And then there's people who are able to really dive deep and say, we really want to get really in there. We trust you, and let's walk this path together for sometimes years. I've had people working with me for years now, right? And that is what you grow and tend. But it happens also in these triage moments, because sometimes someone has a triage moment. You know what I mean? This like
Yeah,
emergency,
yeah.
right? And then they come in a year later and they say, well, I still think of you and I still remember how that moment helped me in life. But it happens
Mm.
naturally because you're called to the path. I really, really, I love what you say there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because I think, again, like you said, like people would title someone the shaman or the healer. These weren't things that people appointed themselves, which I come from a background in marketing and I understand needing to find labels. As you were talking, I was thinking specifically about how in Side Chicks we did recently embrace the terminology of light worker, and I had to feel and heal through my resistance to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I will share that story because when you examine the definition of what is a light worker, it is somebody who brings light to dark places. If we are working in the metaphysical truth that there is an unseen battle between light and dark that is always happening, that's always polarizing individuals, groups, communities, like it's at work and at play, and that what does the darkness want? It wants chaos, it wants suffering, it wants sadness. So what does that show up as? Depression, anxiety, repeated patterns, the all the things that, appear from trauma, all those areas are really the projections of dark and how they show up here in the human life. And light is the opposite to that. So you would then say, okay, if anxiety in someone is the manifestation of darkness, if I am someone who is appointing myself a light worker, then I must be prepared to come into that and recognize that and work with that person. And we are meddling in impactful ways in people's lives that again in the marketing conversations cannot be lost of the serious nature of these interactions and how important it is to do no harm and leave people always better off. Now, if you're operating out of ego, your ego is unfortunately something that we all have to grapple with. It is kind of something that can straddle both sides of what is good, what is bad, but it will affect your intent and your behavior. And to recognize that, right? Like, here's somebody who desperately needs my help, but here's somebody who kind of needs help, but they'll pay a little more. Like, these are the conflicts and realities of the choice to appoint yourself a light worker, to recognize that. And then with that, like I said, I had a lot of resistance because when I understood what light working meant, I was like, ooh, that's actually a hefty title. And I don't want to put that on myself or anyone else because it's kind of volunteering for something I don't know if I'm ready for. And that was kind of my old way of thinking. So I leaned away from it, if not, felt it was a kind of cringy, like self-important label. But through my own growth and recognizing and what's become very real as we've been going through what is the global awakening, more and more people are going through spiritual awakenings. There's this massive need for support of people who have straddled these worlds and also walked this path. Time to come in and kind of walk alongside people. I'm like, okay, now we have to get serious. Okay, we understand what a light worker is, and you're choosing. Am I appointing myself that and taking on that responsibility of am I willing to answer that calling? And again, there's no shame to somebody who hears this and goes, maybe not. Maybe I'll work my magic in other ways. Maybe I'll just focus on myself and my family and raising my kids so they don't, contribute in a negative way to the future of humanity. Those are all wonderful appointments. But if you feel called to more, if you're being told your soul's purpose is for more. You have greater purpose here, and you start to, develop your skills and abilities with the intention of applying them to others. I think we have to go back to emphasizing like what level of integrity that calls for, what level of personal awareness, self-awareness that calls for, and what that actually means. Um, Last year, and because I was working for the ceremonial cacao company, I became a cacao practitioner and started right away sharing cacao with other people. And I really do still love cacao. I love all plant medicine. Ask me anything about plant medicine and I'll go on. But uh,
Another 3 hour
what was interesting,
conversation.
what became an interesting turn and really my growth into what I see now as my next, ascension of myself was I started offering peer support sessions just to people going through existential crisis and suffering from, you know, what is existential realizations, and a lot of people have been going through them. COVID was a big awakener, but to sit with people, to hear, you know, how they are processing reality, recognizing that so many things have been manufactured and, falsely presented and manipulated, like their sense of identity, their self of feeling like grounded in reality. Like we're not just talking about, depression where so many things have gone bad in our lives and now I'm feeling sad. So, we just need to do a little talk therapy. We're talking about people who are realizing, kind of the cruelties of this life. And there's a lot of them where a lot of people have been woken up. And to sit with people and drink the cacao and witness them share their truths and to do that actual exercise, not as a marketing Brandie, not as, the founder of Side Chicks, but to put myself out there and to spend that time, that's when I really clicked on what this requires and who I would need to be to do this and who I need to lead other people and push them to be. And being afraid of hurting people's feelings to make them feel good while they want to develop their little, start their practice, build their business is not in service of them because they must come in understanding what they are inviting to come to them. You've been on the receiving end of Side Chicks. We offer our inboxes for either mini readings or ask me anything. And I see the questions come in. I don't read everybody's. I try to maintain their confidentiality, but I'm very aware. I will say I'm very aware of what people are asking for help with, what they're seeking help from oracles and psychics and readers and healers and life coaches, what they are looking for. People are hurting and they're just desperately like, who on the other end of this form on the internet can maybe take some time for me? And as the person who has created that and has to stand up beside it, I only want other people on the other end who are up for that task. Because sometimes it's not love, light, let's hold hands, sing kumbaya, sound bass, and cacao ceremonies. These are real people. Not all of them are deep in the weeds of the metaphysical niche and all of the subcategories of that. These are just regular, everyday people seeking alternative forms of help because their frustrations also with talk therapy and the pharmaceutical industry, talk therapy, counseling and stuff has not served them or addressed like their deep hurt. So my level of understanding of that responsibility is up leveled
Yep.
and my conversations have got way more serious because that's what it needs to be.
Yeah, and even it's beyond serious, it's actually meaningful as well. It's so full of meaning. And that is like where our larger community is really struggling. I think is to feel like they have a sense of meaning or they're allowed to create their like maybe not create, but they're allowed or invited to follow their purpose or their path as it's like, destined to them. As interesting as you were talking, I had this thought that I was like, every single human has a spirit, whether or not they know it or not. And so sometimes our work is with people who don't really get that, but are asking for that reconnection. And it's a strange kind of conversation beyond the conversation sometimes, and it happens
Mm.
as we walk through the streets. And when we think about setting up our businesses. It's really us saying, we've done enough of this. Like before I joined Side Chicks, I had done, I think, over 3,000 something silly readings, psychic readings online. And I went, okay, I guess I'm psychic now. I can probably prove it. I've got the stats, but I really wanted to be part of community. It wasn't enough for me having this
Mm.
um, like high five, here's your message, high five, here's your message. But actually, the idea that we're all growing together and people are going to have these pings and these realizations all at different times. We kind of move in like waves with each other. I think it's actually quite special. And it is not for the faint of heart. There are many times
Mm.
where people have suggested, I just asked the empath crew today, I said, there's a question, is what do other people in your life tell you to do with your life as a reflection to say, do we agree with that? Why are they telling us this? And earlier on, years ago in my, I guess, career here, it's in my following my mission, my parents would be really worried about my worries about, oh, I'm not sure if this is really right for me. This is like a whole, this is an
Mm.
identity. It is not like a part-time job. This is not a fun hobby. This is like a really deep path of purpose. And I intend to walk it my whole life because it's what I intend to do. And that
Mm.
realization was also really like, it almost felt burdensome early on in the beginning because everyone's like, you sure this one seems like a lot? Yes, it is a lot. Yes, I'm up to the task, I hope.
Well, and I'll give you a little assessment on that. And truthfully, it's about stripping away a lot. It's not about adding more on. This is the
Yeah.
fascinating piece, is actually a lot of us go, well, I'll call myself a intuitive or a psychic when, or I will adopt this onto myself when. And they have these aspirations and these ideas of, what modalities to collect. And what they
Mm-hmm.
really love is they love learning. And they
Mm-hmm.
found a way to kind of, through a business, justify their never-ending seeking of more knowledge, more refinement, more coaching, more mentorship. So they go down that path, which is fine. I love to learn too. So don't get me wrong. Like I can go
Yeah.
down that path myself on any good day. But what is going to bring you back and strip you down to what is really authentic and truly relatable and resonates with people, which allows you to call more people in. And I always tell people, don't get your head up your own ass or end up in that drama school massage circle where you're all just telling each other how great you are and you're all a bunch of spiritual practitioners. You got to step out of that massage circle and you have to go and you have to go and be with other people. And then when you're there, you'll find, what do they need from you? What they need is authenticity, which means strip it all away.
Yeah.
I honestly like keeping space for people. And again, another cheesy terminology, holding space. Like, doesn't that just make you think of the most ridiculous thing? A bunch of people just like, but at the same time, learning to be a listener. Oh, I had to learn to listen. I had no listening skills. I am a yappy Chatterton. Like, I do not know how to shut my mouth and listen. I've had to learn that. I've had to learn how to remove the spotlight from myself and shine it onto other people, to recognize that their experience is more important than mine, to be submissive. It's not about how they felt about me. Oh, did they like me on that call? So get rid of that. It's not going to be an ego-serving experience. In fact, they're sitting there hoping they get the test right. So, it's my
Yes.
job to put them at ease. And there's so much stripping away. I'm very lucky because my gifts show up as my inner child.
Mhm.
I had childhood trauma and I've turned it into my gift. But the way I see people and the way that I proceed and interact with the world is very much like, if we're talking about who's in the driver's seat, it's my inner child. And in a good way, not the one that throws tantrums and fits, but it's this one that's open to people, that hasn't had their feelings hurt, hasn't gone through all of the suffering as an adult, who is very much a naive innocent who just wants to make new friends and connect with people, like, come play with me and share.
Mhm.
And I see people as their inner child when I am being of service to them when I'm in a session with them, when I'm holding I do small group once a week, spiritual awakening small group. So I view it as our inner children coming to play. And we do these playful things like read our cards for each other and, share whatever metaphysical uh, topic we're kind of deep into, there is some practice and there's some readings for each other and there's different things like that. But really, what is the community? Well, the community is first permission to allow inner children to be expressed, which is so healing. Okay, it's so healing to adults to be fully expressed as ourselves, crazy little girls with pigtails and mismatched outfits or whatever you were as a child before you were hurt in all the ways that, growing up hurts us, that authenticity lives there. And so it's really unlearning. It's really stripping away. It's like, okay, now you're a kid and you're at a play date meeting a new friend and it's your job to, make them feel warmly welcome into that experience and to feel like the love that comes from that unfiltered, pure love. That's the job. That's what I found to be, truly what the calling is, at least for me. And sometimes like that takes a lot of self like sacrifice in some ways. Because sometimes I go like, could we just be a normie again for a day? Like, could we just go back before we knew anything and just be normal and binge watch TV and eat junk food and have petty drama instead of existential and like all of that. But, it's not for everybody, but it is a calling and it is easier when you view it through that lens than to be like, okay, now I'm Reiki level dragon, etc., etc. Now come buy sessions from me because that's how it's all supposed to flow.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of people out there Googling, I'm looking for a Reiki level 7 dragon, da da da. But there's a lot of people looking for love, support, listening, alternatives to therapy, peer communities, support groups, resources for self healing and actually overcoming things. I do think the therapeutic industry does many wonderful things, but there are blind spots in it that leave many people just in this consistent cycle of talk therapy. If people want to break free from that, they want to break free from their pharmaceuticals that are, basically chemically altering them. It, there's a lot of people looking for help with that. I'll tell you, it's not modalities, it's
Mhm.
people who can be the ones who hold the way. And holding the way means you walk with the crowd, not a mile ahead of them, going, look how much further up this mountain I am.
Absolutely. So true. So true. And it's interesting. There are a lot of practitioners and yeah, like these light workers who I think early on anyway might have that belief that they need to be this, that, and the other in order to, like I said myself, right? I was like, oh, I'd done thousands of readings and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can do this. I didn't need that. Like truly, right? Like truly what you do need is that ability to say, okay, I'm going to listen to the concerns of people and keep showing up, and keep showing up, and keep
Yeah.
showing up. And we can do that with the title, with the work or not. And if you
Mm,
are going to do the work, it has to include that. There's not a way that it can
mm,
help our community and sustain. And that's not natural. What was natural
yeah.
was people say, I'm hurting here or I'm heartbroken. And we say, as the as the healing folk of whatever that community is. I always go back to like older times because I think it just helps me frame it better. But some of the newer ways of going about it would be, we show up to a market and we say, okay, my hands are here. Who hurts? And I'll take anything that you wish to exchange. And by the end of the day, you've got more than if you'd actually even, like it's so
Yeah, I
fascinating.
love that. That's a beautiful metaphor. And it's so the truth. Like go on Instagram right now as a challenge to everyone. Go on your Instagram. You're tired of hearing us yap and take a scroll or two. You're gonna be hit with an ad because now you're in the spiritual, algorithm. Okay. So you're gonna get hit with an ad and it's like my 5 tips to heal your childhood trauma. sign my webinar now. And then if you've ever gone down that rabbit hole, you go to this webinar, he says it's live, but it's actually pre-recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody sitting in a set who's wearing the costume of what you would expect some form of healer to wear. So they've really glammed it up, is going to tell you 5 tips to heal your inner child. And at the end, they're going to pitch, a $2,000 20-week curriculum that's all pre-recorded with them in their glorious costume and all of that aesthetic. And you may or may not feel called to it, depending on how all that information's presented. So a fraction of people are going to sign up for that, and then they're going to go into that, and they're going to learn some fundamentals of inner child healing, but they're going to leave and they're going to be like, my inner child still really hurts. I now know what an inner child is. I kind of know like where my trauma points are and why it's causing my cycles and why I'm stunted. Because despite what they may like us to believe, because medians have panders to the fact that people are not intellectuals, we actually are able to understand things. We've just been drawn so far away from intuition that we can be gaslit by an entire experience like that and go, well, technically now I have the information, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not better. Whereas, and this really forms a lot of my beliefs. And it's so interesting because a lot of people have the same intuitive zing. God will tell you this same story. Being together in community heals us. When we talk about the major wounds, so the child wound, the mother wound, the sister wound, the father wound, that's just language out there. But it defines where do our traumas and our pain points that have formed, aspects of our character that can be sabotaging, where did they come from? That's what that is defining those wounds. Guess what? The most natural way to heal those wounds is to be in company with similar people who are similarly wounded and learn that you are not alone
Mm-hmm.
and to bond with them. And we're not talking trauma bonding where you're just enforcing people's toxic behavior, but instead allow someone to share something and have someone else witness that sharing and then respond in a intuitively natural way to that, and to honor that person's pain and then offer, if they request it, what has worked for them or some support to help them work through something that they're struggling with. That's why I kind of poo-poo on therapy sometimes because, you know, as much as these therapists, I would not envy them. I would not envy their job, this roster of people and going through talk therapy. There are so many things that they have to withstand and be resilient towards that I don't want to speak negatively of it. But the system itself creates this condition for people where it's so weird, right? You go to this person in their office, you tell them your innermost secrets. They kind of tell you from their textbook learning, because that's what they're supposed to do, not their intuition, not their heart. They're not becoming your friend. They're diversing to their education. So whatever psych trends were when they were in university, they're going to deliver that to you, which again, a lot of it's learning and understanding, which doesn't necessarily lead to transformation. And then, right, they're like, you go away and you go, okay, so when I'm feeling suicidal or when I'm having these triggered thoughts or when I'm having these experiences, my therapist told me this. And you have the applied knowledge, but you don't have the community support because a lot of these therapists now practice really articulated boundaries. You try to text your therapist, you get an auto message. These are my working hours. If you need, you're in crisis, call 911. That is the exact opposite of what somebody who is looking for true transformation, true community, true understanding, true compassion is looking for. Now, again, as empaths and sensitive people and people who want to give of ourselves for various reasons, we also have to have boundaries in place. And that in practice, that boundary is not wrong. It's just the experience of that boundary in a moment of crisis is
Mm-hmm.
contradicting to what
Mm-hmm.
is being presented to you when the messaging everywhere is find someone to talk to. Oh, but sorry, not me, or between these hours and these hours. And if you can't get in for an appointment between the next, 2 weeks of availability, you're on your own, sugar. And the
Mm-hmm.
uptake of people, working suicide hotlines, providing peer support, all of these different things. There's just not enough. There's
Mm-hmm.
not enough volunteers in action. There is not enough people with the right motivations to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I call upon people who see themselves as a light worker who are like, I could do that. I've got a few extra hours of my time. I don't just want the certified modality practitioners. I want the good people.
Yeah.
I want the people with the time. the people who are willing to spend the time.
Yeah.
Uh, it's hard to explain because it's like, yeah, it is a marketing opportunity. If you come into Side Chicks and you have a business, you will be compensated. And actually, some of the best compensation comes from pay what you can and donation based
Yep.
for this. Yeah.
Yep.
So knowing that, and I know that like
Mm.
fundamentally because over the years we've had 300 plus side chicks, and I've talked to the ones who have had really positive experience financially with us. And the majority of their income's not from their signature curriculums, not from their, magically downloaded offerings, but it comes from when they volunteer themselves of service. And I'm like, put your hat out and see what happens because, sometimes, right, you get blessed financially and monetarily in unexpected ways when you are walking in alignment. And that's if you're concerned about scarcity and this is your calling and you're concerned about how you're going to pay your bills and not to get too biblical, prophetic, but Jesus went to those who were the prostitutes, the alcoholics, the downtrodden, but he was fed and his needs were met, maybe not always in abundance or at the level of, boss babe, hey girl type thing. But you know what? He was taken care of through what he did, and we are called to be inspired by that, to follow that. And it's it's what we got to do. If you come to that realization, it's really surprising actually what happens afterwards. It I'm not one to get into the cliches of manifestation and law of attraction stuff because I do think it takes people again down the wrong kind of direction of attention away from the point. But energy in to energy out, you are always divinely compensated.
Yeah.
And to recognize too that capitalism itself is a flawed system. So when you aspire, for instance, say if you're still drawn to things like designer handbags, nice cars, fancy houses, and you're trying to validate something to prove yourself to a culture and a society and a system, and that's still what motivates you really at the end of the day when you go deep into your shadow, then not only are you kind of like skipping the destination and driving all over the place towards the wrong, destination on the map, but you also will never be satisfied. I personally have experienced that, chasing the monetary rewards. And you know what? I am not more financially when I was making really good money, there were so many other things going on with me because in order to achieve that, there were so many things, my relationships with my children, my self-esteem, my time, my energy with my marketing agency, and then a little bit in my marketing director career. All of those things, like, yeah, you can have more money in the bank. There's always a way to have more money in the bank and choose, to follow paths that will get you that. But I'm much happier and I'm in a state of surrender a lot of the time. My husband went back to work, so I could do side chicks full time. But we also had another baby, which also made me cut back what I was doing for work. But I would trade her for all the money in the world. And I have my three children. She's the one I've been most present with. And I am currently being well compensated through side chicks after 4 years of consistently trying to get people to understand what it is.
Mhm.
Not, I set it up yesterday and all of a sudden, I'm an overnight internet success story. I set it up 4 years ago. It was a hobby and a passion side project. I always thought my marketing career would be the main thing. Things changed in me and things swapped. So I do marketing consulting, but primarily I do side chicks now. It pays enough for me. I'm hoping eventually I'll hire someone else into it. And it's still a state of surrender. I mean, month to month, because if my members, decide a lot of them are offboarding, I'm back to rebuilding. I'm not in a place where it's like I can guarantee, next month is going to be exactly the same as this month. And that is, just the path I've chosen to walk. But I am happy. I am living in my purpose. I'm helping people every single day to the point that if I actually feel into it in my meditations, I deeply feel the impact, ripple effect of me being me and how it's affecting, 10 people around me and how those 10 people are now being influenced and affecting 10 other people. And I feel it. And I like have this energy and momentum that is like, it is so incredibly powerful. This is the first time in my life we have 80 members. We've been fluctuating around the 80 members or so lately, and I know they are all praying for me and I'm praying for them. They are all being led by me, so I am a role model to them as a leader, which means I am respecting that position. I say thank you every day for this appointment, even though I don't completely understand what it is. Why me? Why me, God? I'm just a silly girl with a computer. I wanted to make some stickers. I don't know. Like, yeah, I am appreciating the appointment. I am enjoying the journey, and I have this energy that surrounds me constantly, these rippling effects of the positive influences that my work is spreading out into the world. And so that is, financially that is sometimes very rewarding, but energetically rewarding is just never ending abundance, just never ending, just like, I try not to talk about it too much because like we were talking before we got on the call, a lot of times, it seems like you're bragging when you have a good life and you feel the energy of your good life and it lifts you up every day, because most people are not in that situation. They're doing things that are not fulfilling to them. They're phoning it in at work. COVID made it really real to them about how kind of cog in the machine they really are, and they have to live that way though because we still have mortgages, we still have bills to pay and stuff. So I know that I'm a rare case, and people like yourself, Kate, are rare cases who just live in this energetic space. It's like it's good. It's good. It's so yummy. It's exciting. I can tap into happiness just by remembering how being me feels. Uh, and that is abundance.
It's so beautiful. I literally, what I see is standing, but with multiple people, and then everyone having torches and all these flames, and you know how they spread out. We don't even know how many end up getting spread out, and every single person actually has that. And the more good you do, the more that happens. It's such a beautifully simplistic but powerful idea to think that that
Mhm.
is what it is. That is at the core always what it is.
And that is light work, and that is the fight of our lives. This is a
Yep,
spiritual battle. It is a battle of, are we going to be lit or are we going to be dim? The
absolutely.
divisiveness, you can't help but get a little tinfoil hat when you think of the divisiveness of taking people away from each other when they know, even like they've done tests with like rodents and animals to separate them from other animals and how they slowly sink into a depression. They stop doing what they are instinctively as animals designed to do. They stop finding meaning, they stop feeding themselves, they lose weight, and they shrivel away and eventually pass on. When animals are isolated, they lose the light in them.
Mhm.
So, human beings, we're not meant to be isolated in our little boxes, scrolling our dumb boxes. It's not supposed to be the way. And we have everything in messaging coming at us that is manipulating us to be like, yeah, that's normal. It's not. If you feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable and that that's not normal and that is making you despairing, maybe the root cause of depression is that reality. And the only way to cure that, to actually lift people from that, is to ignite their inner lights and to be the opposite of everything that is coming at them. Be unusual. Be,
Mhm.
strange in that way. Be interested in people. Like if people's like practical advice, ask people questions about themselves. Very rarely do people in their adult life get to be asked questions about themselves, and not just how's the weather, how's your job, like ask
Real
them,
good
you know,
questions.
good questions,
Yeah.
and be curious, because it's so healing to walk away from a conversation when you actually had a receptive listener who
Mhm.
wasn't thinking about what they were going to say to you when you finished talking, but
Mhm.
instead, and that their intentions of speaking. So be intentional. Being intentional makes you weird. Okay. Being
Yeah.
slow. I'm pretty sure most people I meet think that I'm very strange.
Mhm.
And I don't need to be psychic to understand that
Yeah.
because I'm different. But the way I proceed is very intentional and very present, and it's jarring, and I feel like I encourage people to be more like that, to be strange and unusual, wandering around the world, you know, picking up somebody's grocery can that they dropped and having a 10-minute conversation. All
Mhm.
of those things are part of the healing work. And if you're not doing those fundamentals, I know we're wrapping up here, but I just have to say this last bit. If you're not doing the fundamentals, then don't declare yourself someone's guru. Like,
Yes.
master the fundamentals, because the fundamentals of kindness, the fundamentals of listening, space holding, space creating, experience creating, that is the first step. And then all that other stuff is just like, you know, things you can kind of add on to the menu. But if you got to do the fundamentals, so few people have even the fundamentals and they're out there, you know, meddle. And I do call it meddling because
Mhm.
um, I've come to see a lot of things through
Mhm.
running this platform.
Mhm.
Uh, and this came to me in a meditation, and I want to share. A lot of times we try to convert people to our own beliefs because we're still working from the textbook, right? So whether you are like, you know, whatever level of certification in your modality you are, experience level or learning, or even if you have formal education, you went to university for this stuff. When we advise people not from intuition, we just try basically to indoctrinate them to what we believe and what we think. So again, making ourselves their assigned guru. The problem with that is we're trying to correct something, but often we're leaving them without what they originally had. And so I had this channel message come through, and it was really important. It was like, you never remove something from someone unless you have something better to replace.
Mhm.
And now, for instance, a practical application of that is someone's, say, been raised a Christian and they're a biblical Christian. And that's faith maybe is not working for them as they'd like to be. Maybe they're not connecting with God and spirit in the way that they'd like to be. So they have questions and curiosity. In my opinion, an amateur comes in and goes, here's all this new age crap that's working for me. And all the stuff you've ever been told is evil. So I'm going to give you all of these things you've been told your whole life, you know, tarot cards and whatnot. And I'm going to give you crystals. I'm going to sell you all this stuff. And I'm going to charge you for a session with me. I'm going to correct all that for you. And you do one session and you just took away somebody's foundation,
Mhm.
gave them a bunch of materialistic stuff, and then left, and you actually left them worse off. When I'm saying we don't leave people worse off than we
Mhm.
found them, that's the stuff we don't do. And that is the amateur kind of tendencies, because you're not working from intuition yet. You're not working from like, okay, this is what the person needs to hear from me in this moment. And here's how I can honor where they are. We're also introducing something that is truly beneficial to them and, you know, encompassing them because it is all love. It comes from the right place
Yeah.
and encompassing them, and that we never take things away unless we have something better to leave them with. And most of us actually don't. Most of us do not have, you know, like, okay, take this and this and this and call me in the morning. It's about meeting people where they're at and giving them what they need. I liked how you said kind of like it is, you know, kind of you're in an emergency situation, you're kind of doing triage. But I want to see a transformation in the lightworking community to embrace the simplicity of the work,
Mhm.
dumb it all down, throw out modality this and practice this and textbook that and my guru's guru taught me
Mhm.
kind of stuff, and get back to like heart led. If you are connected to source, they will tell you what to do in the moment and to act on that, and then not judge yourself, remove your own ego from the equation, and just allow experiences to experience.
Yeah.
Let the things thing.
And for
Yeah.
anyone who's like thinking about doing this type of work, that's also where it begins. So it can start and end with just exactly that, right? Is being a kind, good person and continuing to practice opening yourself up and trusting that in the moment, if you're from that heart space, the experience that they're meant to have and that you're meant to have, that we learn in those situations, is always going to happen as well. That we're constantly learning from these experiences we share with everyone.
Oh, yeah, and that first you have to have the motivation, but it's a practice in your everyday. I do think about it like meeting your highest self. So, you know, it's kind of like the what would my highest self do is kind of the first step to recognize that like what you do on autopilot. An interesting trick of intuition, right, is Sometimes if we have trauma, our intuition's actually not a good compass. Our natural instincts actually lead us down the wrong path
Mhm.
because they're scared. So
Mhm.
you have to be able to learn to actually correct on your instincts if that's the case. You're actually not likely going to completely remove that. What you learn to do is recognize that, right? You recognize, oh, because of my patterns and behaviors, when I encounter this, I behave like this. That's my intuitive instinct. But my intuitive instinct is actually incorrect because I've been traumatized, I've been hurt, I've had these experiences. So that thing is not pointing in the right direction. So now I have to learn to, you know, kind of turn it over to source, turn it over to my guides, turn it over really to your highest self, and get like, okay, my regular self would do this, but what would my highest self do? And that's going to give you the bypass. And with the bypass, you're usually showing up as your best self.
Mhm.
You like with that, like most of us are not coming through as like a clean vessel with like a clean compass, you know, pointing us always in the right way. We actually need to learn why our compass kind of spins in the wrong direction once in a while, or why we kind of revert back to old tendencies, or why we are actually afraid to be visible or stand out or be different than others and chase again, like I said, the capitalistic, materialistic things while doing it under this veil of,
Mm.
spirituality. Like you gotta see where that kind of contradicts itself and make your own self corrections because again, I don't know anybody who doesn't have a little bit of that going on, no matter how many levels of ascension they've experienced.
Yeah.
That is part of it. And you can, like I said, end up in the drama circle, massage circle, end up with your head up your own butt, just
Yeah.
kind of self-validating. You got to have a way to kind of bypass that and go, oh, I actually have everything I need to do this. And I need to follow that voice. I need to follow, in my case, like I said, I let my inner child kind of drive the car. She really craves friendship and connection and wants to make everybody feel welcome and play together. And she's like that girl in Mean Girls who's like, I just want rainbows and ponies and like, but she leads me the right way. So I
Yes.
let her drive when when it suits the occasion.
Absolutely. I think, and that's especially true too. We do also take ourselves a little less seriously when we connect to that inner child self. So it can never go wrong allowing that inner child to actually take the wheel a little bit more often in life. I think it's the most powerful way. So it's a beautiful place for us to end off at. Perhaps we'll have to have more Oracle Mountain chats because I know you and I could go on for eons and eons with how much we would love to share about all of this stuff. But we are also going to get to hear more from you at OracleFest. So for those of you who have really jammed with Brandie's energy, then look forward to her session. I'm really looking forward to hearing you in that space and just having you there, isn't it? It's just all of us playing in all of our different ways. So big metaphysical playground, OracleFest, and Side Chicks. So for the
Yeah.
you who are interested in Brandie's community as well, I'm there and I'll be there. So please join us and play with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and go check it
Yeah.
out. I'll put links and stuff like that below and on your speaker page. Anything else you'd like to add before we end this little mountain chat?
No, I'm very approachable. So if you have any questions about what it looks like to be in the collective, we
Mhm.
welcome people at all levels. And I think I've made it really clear about what I'm looking for. So if that speaks to you, there is, the reward of having a lot of visibility. We're very active and there's a
Mhm.
lot of need in our community to be served.
Mhm.
A lot of our members who follow my lead on things are doing very well with their businesses. And so I encourage you. I give a lot of resources and help to every member of my collective. So anytime you have a question, whether it's technical stuff relating to marketing or more existential stuff, like kind of what we just talked about, I'm very open and I love Intuit, and that's my philosophy. So if you want somebody who is in some ways a tough love coach, which I do have that component to me, but I am very generous in how I teach. I'm neurodivergent friendly, so ADHD and autism. I'm autistic myself and likely ADHD in addition to that. And I've also focused on making sure that I create resources and make everything friendly to people with those neurodifferences because it's part of how we make the world more accessible to people. So come talk to me if you're interested. I'll answer any questions you have, and you can visit sidechickscollective.com if you'd like to read and take a look at our directory and see who else is there. And you'll know if it's for you. You can read the vibe.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Brandie. Just wanted to say thank you again for being here and for being a part of Oracle Fest as well. I'm really looking forward to having you there.
Thank you.